Hey there, interwebs. I hope you're all doing well. So for today's video, I kind of want to have an open, kind of raw and honest discussion about a topic that has been becoming more and more discussed and prominent lately, about a major issue that is happening both on YouTube and Twitch and a couple other platforms, but mainly those two platforms. Specifically the issue of hate raids that have been targeting minority creators on both of those platforms. Specifically, I want to say women creators, trans creators, LGBTQ creators in general, people of color, black creators, on both of those platforms. And the reason that I want to have this kind of open discussion is kind of for two reasons. The first is sort of the larger discussion because there has been kind of a huge pushback by people, a lot of these creators on Twitch and YouTube that have been calling for both of these platforms to do something about these hate raids because they are a major problem and they cause a lot of harm to the creators and the communities that these hate raids target. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that in just a second in this video. But the second reason that I want to talk about this issue is because this is something that has affected me. I have been someone who has been the target of hate raids, and I want to kind of open up about my story around what it felt like to have a hate raid happen to me and the hidden cost of what hate raids do to creators and communities that they target, even if it only happens one time. Because I think a lot of people feel like, oh, hate raids happen, it occurs on one live stream, maybe a couple live streams to some people. It's annoying, it's awful and terrible, but that's sort of the end of it. It's just that one thing. And honestly, I'm here to tell you that that is most definitely not the case. It is a much larger discussion that happens around these hate raids. It creates a space of fear, toxicity, mental health damages for the creator and the community, and a hell of a lot more. And I kind of want to share what that means through my own personal story because honestly it deeply affected my mental health for several weeks after the event, and honestly, to a degree, still has ramifications to this day, even though this happened months ago to me. And I kind of want to just be open and honest about it because I feel like my story is probably indicative of a lot of people's experiences on this platform and on Twitch when dealing with hate raids. So let's kind of open up and talk about it. And I'm going to talk mostly first about my story, and then towards the end of this video, we'll get into the sort of larger discussion about how I feel my story connects with the larger narrative and needed discussion that needs to happen around hate raids on these platforms. Also, by the way, throughout this video, I'm probably going to be drinking some tea because I'm still kind of recovering from a sinus infection, so apologies if my throat and my voice sounds a little bit weird at moments because I'll be talking for a little bit, but I'll have this nice tea, and it's got a little owl with a monocle on it, which is like I love this cup. I love this cup so much. It's just like the most adorable thing that I own, besides myself. I mean, I own myself, and I'm adorable, so there you go. So to give you sort of a brief description of hate raids, for those of you who may not know what hate raids are when a creator who's doing a live stream, either doing like a podcast recording, playing video games, just engaging with their audience, and they have sort of a live stream chat that they can engage directly with their audience in real time. A hate raid is when a group of people using either bots or just themselves will come into that person's live stream chat and start spamming it with hateful language, transphobic slurs, racial slurs, just awful sort of like phrases, things like, for my case, against some trans, they'll be like, "You'll never be a woman, hey, look at you, you gross, disgusting," like stuff like that. Really transphobic comments that are really nasty and gross, and they can be even worse. I mean, I've seen people use the N-word, for black people, different other really, really terrible slurs and things like that, homophobic slurs and things like that. And it just sort of spams the entire live chat so that anyone engaging with the chat, both the creator and the audience, can't really do anything about it. It's just all this stuff, and that's all you can see, and it sort of stops the live stream cold because no longer can the audience engage with the creator, which is kind of the whole purpose of doing a live stream, and also just forces people to see this really transphobic and hateful and nasty comments. So that's basically what a hate raid is. Like I said, that initially just seems like, okay, it ruins the live stream, it's awful, and it's gross and disgusting, but it just ruins like one event, and it happens, that's the internet, go anyway. I can understand why people would think that way, especially if you're someone who's not part of a minority community. But let me sort of talk about my experience dealing with one of these, and what it meant to me, and my feelings towards my platform, towards my community, towards my own safety, how it spiraled out of control in a lot of different ways, and discuss that. So, a few months ago, I was doing one of my normal Saturday night video game streams. Every Saturday night, I play video games drunkenly. We have fun. I engage with my community. It's honestly one of my favorite things to do on my platform. I mean, I love making videos. I love making content. But I just like being able to have a chance to just relax, engage with my community, get to know my community, get to know the people that are, really like my content and really like to engage with me. I mean, that's one of the joys of being a creator and building a platform like this, is getting a chance to build that community of positive, kind, caring folks, getting to know them, getting to see them. It's hard for me to know every single person, but a live stream is sort of a way for me to get at least a sense of like, this is the community that I built. These are the wonderful, kind, caring people that I get to engage with, the type of discourse that I get to create, the type of conversations that people want to have with me, and also just a place for me to kind of relax and be myself, and get to show you myself in kind of a way that sort of feels nice on this platform. That's what I really love about live streaming. And so I was doing that my Saturday night, my sort of typical playing video games, getting drunk, playing Mass Effect, and falling in love with Garrus, as I do, because Garrus is the best character in the world. Several hours into the live stream, suddenly, as I was sitting here engaging with the chat, talking with everyone, we got hit with a hate raid. Suddenly, all of a sudden, we were just hit with tons and tons of comments of really, really nasty stuff. A lot of bots repeating the same messages over and over again, sort of saying the same things, saying the N-word, saying the transphobic slur, insulting me, insulting my audience, things like that. It was really gross and nasty, and in that moment, there is obviously going to be an effect on me and the audience. First and foremost, obviously, now I have to stop what I'm doing, I have to stop what I'm engaging with, and I'm trying to deal with this situation. Trying to block the people that are coming in. My moderators, of which I have several, are trying to block people as well, trying to stop this from happening. While also trying to, when it first happens, you don't really realize what's happening. You're like, oh, I get transphobic comments every once in a while on live streams. It's usually a one-off, and I just say, hey, don't do that, stop that. And so I just call it out and let it go by. Because that's what you kind of want to do when you're being in a live stream. You don't want to draw attention to the hate. You just want to say, hey, don't do that, or just stop it or block it and just move on, because drawing attention to it sort of makes it a bigger deal than it actually needs to be. However, when you start dealing with a hate raid, it becomes the entire focus. I have to stop and focus on that. And number one, that feels awful to me, because I want to create a safe, fun, caring, kind space for my audience. And now all of a sudden that has been completely ruined. This has a really additional effect against marginalized communities like mine. My live stream community and my community that I built up here, because I am trans, because I'm someone who talks about trans issues, is mainly built up of a lot of trans folks. And they come to my space because trans folks don't have a lot of online spaces where they're able to feel safe, where they're able to feel accepted, where we can talk about being trans, but not have it be the focus, not have it be like the center issue. It's an important thing for trans people to have, to be like, hey, look, I'm accepted in this trans space. It's really nice. And so for that space to be breached with these really terrible comments suddenly creates this air of hostility and danger, and can be really triggering for a lot of people who just came to a space to try and feel safe for once, because they don't have that very often. So I immediately become very, very upset on my end, but I'm trying to hide it because I'm on camera, trying to not, show that to the audience, trying to keep things calm, trying to show like, hey, we're going to be okay. It's going to be fine. I'm trying to keep that safe space as best I can in light of these people, and keep people focused on the positivity. But I also know that my audience is at danger of being triggered because, they come to have some fun on a Saturday night, to be safe, and now have to be confronted with the most vile things that they wanted to escape from. And for many people who may deal with this every single day of their lives, including myself and other people, having to suddenly have to deal with it when you feel safe can be very, very traumatic. Very, very traumatic. And obviously, because there's so many comments, there's bots being involved. Like, bots just continually spam things. That's what they're made to do. So no matter what I can do to try and block people, to try and delete messages, what my moderators try to do, there's only so much we can do in face of an actual computer putting these messages out. So they just keep filling things up. So that's what initially happens. And I get distracted. It ruins the mood. It kind of creates this unsafe space during a period where I was trying to create a safe space. But eventually the hate raid stopped that evening. And it only lasted about 5 or 6 minutes. I tried to calm down my audience and said, hey, we got through it. I tried to recreate that air of positivity. We got back to it. But then 30 minutes later, the hate raid came back. I'll get into what I know happened that night in just a second. But from my end, it was like, suddenly hate raid happened again. And I'm just sort of like at this point where it's like, well, I was hoping to go for another hour. I was hoping to have a lot of fun, but eventually, I just have to end it because I'm being, traumatized. My audience is being traumatized. It's not really conducive to anything. I'm not really being able to be entertaining. It just causes me to ruin my entire plans in the evening. So that's, sort of the initial thing. And that's where most people think that this sort of thing would end. Like it creates it ruins the evening, ruins the live stream, ruins the moment. But ultimately it's just that event, right? That's what most people feel like it would be. Now, the thing that I've just talked about, the traumatizing of a marginalized community audience, I think that's something that people often forget. And that can be incredibly dangerous, incredibly harmful. And I do not want to undercut how deeply damaging it can be to someone who's trying to be in a safe space to suddenly have to face transphobic comments and have to deal with that, and how really painful that can be, especially to, I know many of my audience come from areas where it is not safe to be trans, and so having an outlet online is incredibly important to them, and for that safe space to be invaded and destroyed, even for a moment, can be deeply, deeply mentally harmfully damaging. Especially, I know I have people in my audience who look forward to my live streams because they don't get any respite during their daily lives and need that outlet to feel like they're feeling safe, and to feel like that's taken away from them even one evening can really mentally harm them for days on end. This is something that I know happens. So that's one additional thing that I don't think people think a lot about. But here's the thing. After that night, I wanted to sort of address it publicly and say, hey, look, I don't think this is indicative of my channel. I want people to know that people are caring and kind. And I was really proud of the fact that despite everything going on in the channel, most people engaged in the live stream chat were saying positive, kind, ignoring the terrible people, saying, we love each other. I was very proud of the positivity shared, even after and during the hate raid. And so I created a video that I posted up right after that hate raid ended to sort of say like, hey, this happened, and I'm really proud of this community for staying positive and kind, because that's something that's meaningful to me. In the face of awfulness and disgusting nastiness, we stay kind and positive, and we will always fight back against bigotry, but we stay kind and positive and keep the focus on building a positive community, not on bigotry. We will fight bigotry, we will talk about bigotry, but the goal is always to build a positive community. And that's what I wanted to say, and I posted up a video that said that. However, later that night, I was sort of like doing my wind down sort of evening plan where I watch an episode of TV, eat a taco because I like having a taco before I go to bed after a live stream. Taco Bell, because Taco Bell's the best thing when you're drunk after a live stream. It's nasty, but oh boy, does it taste good. But I got a message from one of my followers over on Twitter who DM'd me and said that they knew where the hate raid had come from. I'm not going to name the place where the hate raid came from because I don't want to draw attention to them, nor do I wish to make myself a direct target of them. But I did find where the hate raid came from. It was essentially what you would call like kind of a off-brand subreddit, a subreddit that was just sort of created by this group of people who basically their whole thing is to create hate raids against people. They get together on Saturday nights or a few nights a week to create hate raids because they want to have fun. They want to make fun of people. They want to get some lulz, and they target it expressly against minority groups and minority creators. I went and looked at the subreddit that evening, and I saw this. I saw a bunch of different threads and comments of them sort of planning out these different attacks, finding different live streams going on at the moment and targeting them and attacking them. Most of them were of creators much smaller than myself. I have a fairly large platform. The live streams that they typically go after are creators of minority communities who only have like, I don't know, not even 1,000 followers, and maybe 3 or 4 people watch their content. But they come in and attack these creators. Trying to figure things out, just trying to have fun, just trying to do what little they can with their platform, and all of a sudden they're invaded by these nasty, nasty people. For me, this is something that I can kind of handle. I have a big platform. I am somewhat prepared for some stuff like this to happen, of nastiness and transphobes. I'm used to it as someone who has had a big platform. Maybe not at this level of hate raids, but I've seen it happen numerous times in smaller ways. But for these creators who are just doing these small things, to suddenly get attacked like that, can you imagine what it feels like? To suddenly be like, I'm trying to build a platform, I'm just trying to have fun, I'm trying to figure things out. Sometimes it's just people like, I want to chat with like the 3 people that show up. To suddenly get attacked that way. Do you think they'll want to come back to the platform after that? Do you think they'll want to come back on? It creates these hate raids when they do things like this, especially against smaller creators, create this chilling effect of minority creators who have a hard enough time as it is on this platform to build an audience, given that this platform on YouTube and Twitch isn't really conducive to promoting minority creators and letting minority creators talk about minority issues. When it's already that hard to build a platform, when during one of your few things that you do and one of your few things that you get traction is hate and nastiness and disgustingness, it creates a chilling effect where minority creators feel like they don't want to keep engaging with these platforms, and therefore causes a giant chilling effect on minority creators being able to have a voice on platforms like this. But anyways, these hate raid groups target these creators, and they happen to target me. Now, when they found my live stream, I found the thread where they initially chose to come after me. They started attacking my looks. They called me the T-slur. They insulted me before they even began the raid. I found that thread of them saying nasty, awful things about me, making fun of my hairline, my shoulders, every single thing that could be like, look at this man, oh, look at his mannish figures, trying to, just being generally transphobic and trying to point out like the things that they saw as masculine about me to try to delegitimize my gender. Sort of their insular sort of group trying to just be like incredibly transphobic amongst themselves. But I saw it. It's there for everyone to see if you find it. It's gross and nasty and disgusting. But whatever, they think they're doing it amongst themselves, and they came and targeted me and attacked me. And then I found the thread with them celebrating how wonderful it was that they saw me having to deal with it, that I got distracted, that I got, flustered in a moment when trying to deal with this, insulting every single moment of my stream. And I know it's a bunch of bigots, and I know it's a bunch of terrible people, but you know how it feels to know that every single minutia of your reaction to dealing with hate is suddenly now become the target of people laughing and ridiculing you? Like if I said something slightly wrong, it's like, what's going on? Or, oh my gosh, what is, like, every little piece of my interaction was made fun of, picked apart. And I know that's part of being a public figure to a degree, but to do it in such a transphobic way, it's gross and nasty and disgusting. It feels violating in a weird way. And I found that. That's on there. That's what happens when people do a hate raid. But then even further, I found another thread where they found the video that I had done discussing the raid, where I was saying like, hey, look, I want to spread positivity. I want to spread love. I'm really proud of this community for dealing with it in a positive way. And they started making fun of me for it, laughing at me, insulting my breasts, insulting my looks again. I found that thread too. And I got scared. Because they started talking about, hey, we should do this raid again. We should keep going after her. We should add her to, they have a list of live streams that they regularly invade on their platform. And they said, maybe we should add her to that stream. Maybe we should add her to that list of platforms. Terrifying. To know that suddenly I was now going to become possibly the target of regular attacks. And so, because of that, I immediately took down the video because I didn't want to give fuel to the fire for them to come after me. I didn't want them to say like, haha, she's talking about us. Let's go after her. Let's show her. I immediately took down the video. And because now I felt this fear, I kept going back to look at that subreddit, trying to constantly look up my name, trying to make sure that I wasn't going to be talked about or become the target of ire again, to try and protect myself. And I was constantly looking at these different threads of people not just assaulting other trans people, but people of color, marginalized communities. I constantly had to read that to try and protect myself, to engage with these nasty, disgusting comments, because I wanted to be prepared for if I became the target of harassment again. I had to engage with that daily. Over the next few days, I became obsessed with looking at this platform, looking at this page to try and protect myself, to make sure that this didn't happen again. It became mentally damaging. I also began to fear my own platform. I do a live stream every Thursday and Saturday, and I became fearful of my next live stream event. These live streams, like I said, are live stream events where I like to engage with my audience. I like the positivity. I like the wonder and kindness and caring that I get to engage with my audience on. But that Thursday started filling me with dread because I did not know if I was going to be going into a live stream where I was engaging with a kind, thoughtful, caring community, or if I was going to be attacked again. And if I was going to be responsible for my audience feeling traumatized again. I didn't want to feel it myself, and I didn't want to feel it for them. This was constantly in my brain, and it caused me to become fearful of my own platform because, maybe 10 people decided to target me for their jollies? I had to engage with hate every single day, think about hate every single day for their jollies? It's gross and disgusting, and it affected my everyday mental health. And what I started to realize is that, in a way, this became a form of self-harm. It's honestly something that happens with a lot of creators that I've seen. This is just one way that this happens, but I know a lot of creators, once they hit a certain level, they like to start seeking out what people say about them, because you kind of want to know what people are saying about your content and your audience. I mean, we all kind of do it, but because of human, psychology, we tend to look at the negative comments. We tend to seek out the negative comments. And because creators of marginalized communities get attacked in, transphobic and very harassing ways that have nothing to do with their actual content, but actually just to do with their status as a marginalized community, creators of marginalized communities often seek out, because of that psychology that makes us want to see the negative comments, the most harassing and awful comments that they can find. When a creator from a non-marginalized community does bad content, they may go and look and see some regular negative comments. But for marginalized communities, I will go and see it, and I will see harassing comments that, again, have nothing to do with my actual content, but just have to do with the fact that I'm a marginalized creator, that I'm a trans creator. And that happens with a lot, like I said, that happens with a lot of marginalized creators that I see. I mean, even big creators that I know, like ContraPoints, for example. I know some people have issues with some of her content, but just to sort of talk about her, she is a big content creator. She's a big trans content creator. She talked about in some of her earlier videos that she would engage with looking on these really nasty threads of people talking about her, engaging with her. That affects your mental health as a creator. And it has nothing to do with your content. It's not like they're actually critiquing what you have to say. And it becomes a form of self-harm, like I said. It becomes a form of we can't not look at these things, but every time we do, it causes us mental damage. And it's a thing that happens to a lot of creators, this constant self-harm that we have to do when we seek out these comments. And it's also done out of a need to protect ourselves as well, as I've been talking about. And it also creates, like I said, a fear of your own platform. And again, especially for smaller creators, but even having a bigger creators, it can make you not want to engage with this content. It makes you not want to engage with this, even if you built up a strong community. 10 people can make you feel isolated from your own community, because they're the ones being bigoted and hateful. Now, thankfully, during that week, what I set up and did was there are some tools in the back end of YouTube that you can do, like you can put in certain words that can be automatically blocked and things like that, but I had to actively seek that out. I had to go and find lists on different websites of different slurs and things, the different ways that people say things. I had to be aware of different phrases that people say against trans people, like, "You will never be a woman." I had to think of all the different transphobic phrases and program that into my back end to make sure that if someone came into my live stream, that those messages automatically be flagged. But I had to think of all those things. That's the work that I had to do as a marginalized creator. I had to go into my back end and think of the slurs against my own community and other communities to try and protect myself. That's the work that I had to do. And even to this day, what YouTube does is it doesn't delete those comments. It puts it in a separate folder that you can sort of go into as the creator and sort of say, I approve of that one to go up. I delete that one. But you still have to see it. They may not be public, but for me, I still have to see them. And so there's this whole list, this whole other folder on my comment section of now that's flagging all these transphobic phrases. And it also, by the way, catches some positive phrases too. Because sometimes I talk about a slur in a video, I want to discuss a slur in a video or something like that, and someone wants to discuss that in a well-meaning way. And they'll type that word in the comments, but it'll get flagged. And so some people's comments get flagged and hidden, and they think it's been deleted when they were just talking in faith. And I have to go in and check those things all the time. And so it also creates a chilling effect on people engaging with my content at the same time. You see how all this stuff starts to pile on with just a simple hate raid? People think it's just one thing, one and done. It starts to pile on more and more and more things like this. Now, at the end of the day here, I am someone who is somewhat prepared for all of this. I like to talk about Star Trek. I like to talk about geeky, nerdy, dorky things. But also on this channel, I talk a lot about bigotry. I talk a lot about TERFs. I talk a lot about transphobic hate. I talk a lot about different hate groups on this channel. I am a fairly political channel. That's something that I am, as a creator, kind of engaging, willfully engaging with. And as such, I know that to a degree, it's not something that I think should happen, but I know just being a trans person online engaging with these topics will make me more likely to be the target of these things. And I'm kind of mentally prepared for that fact. If I talk about TERFs, more than likely TERFs who are regularly online harassing other trans people, that's kind of part of their MO. TERFs harass trans people. That's what they do. That's kind of their whole point. I'm prepared for dealing with that, even though I don't think that should be the case. I don't think trans people should have to prepare themselves to be the target of harassment, or people of color should prepare themselves to be the target of harassment when they engage with these topics of themselves being marginalized. But it's something that I'm kind of prepared for as a creator. And I've also, I've been on bigger platforms. I used to work for LGBTQ magazines. I used to be a public face on those bigger platforms. They had a lot more homophobia than my YouTube channel. And so I've gotten death threats. I'm used to this sort of stuff. But again, I talked about earlier in this video, think about all the creators that, number one, have smaller platforms than mine, who aren't prepared for that sort of thing, who don't have the training, who don't have the mental fortitude that I have been able to build up because I've been engaging with this type of stuff for years now. Someone who just wants to try and build, oh, I'm a trans person who wants to talk about Star Trek, or I'm a trans person who wants to talk about nerdy stuff. But they'll still get that same transphobic hate. There are black creators who get a lot of racist shit when they're just talking about nerdy stuff like Marvel movies and things like that. Again, it creates this chilling effect against these creators to want to engage with this platform. And it causes marginalized creators to not have much of a voice because of these types of hate rates. However, this does bring me to one final part of this discussion, and that is why creators don't actually talk about this more. Why there are not more videos like the one I'm currently doing right now talking about hate raids and the emotional effects on it. And that is because when you speak up about this stuff, you do make yourself a target. Not just people doing hate raids against you just for jollies, but to come after you specifically because you are speaking up about these things. Again, I know this because this has personally been something that has happened to me. When I did that video, where I talked about hey, I'm glad that we pushed back against this hate group and things like that, where I talked about the hate raid that happened, like I said, that group that was doing those hate raids started rallying up against me, wanting to come after me, wanting to attack me. And something that I didn't mention earlier that I will mention now is that they started to find out information about my personal life. It happened first with someone posting up, and this is because I constantly kept coming back to that page. Someone found my Tinder dating profile and posted it up on the site. That means someone, and I saw the picture, they were within 30 miles of me. Someone within the vicinity of where I live found my information, my dating profile, and posted it up for people to see. Now, my dating profile is public. I don't really care all that much. It's mostly stuff that you would already know about me, but it's scary to know that someone's close to you. I mean, 30 miles. There's a bunch of people. I mean, I live in Seattle. There's a bunch of people within 30 miles of me. To think there's one transphobe, yeah, sure. But to know that there's someone nearby that is expressly looking for me, that knows who I am, that's terrifying. From there, I saw another thread where someone posted, hey, what was the name of that creator? I want to get more information on her. Now, some of the comments on this was oh, you want to jerk off to her? You weirdo. More transphobic nonsense. But that meant that someone was looking for information on me. And as some of you who may follow my live streams may know, something that happened to me recently is during my live streams, I suddenly had to get up because I got a pizza order. A pizza order that I didn't ask for. I didn't order pizza, but somehow during a live stream, pizza came to my house with my name and my address. What that means is, and this is a common tactic for doxers, is that they have found your information where you live, and then during a live stream, they'll order pizza and stuff to your house to confirm that that's your address, because they can see you on the live stream getting up and be like, oh, I sent it to the right address. That is definitely her address. So what that means is I've probably been doxed. And more than likely, I don't know if this is because of the hate raids. It also might be because I talk about TERF groups and TERF things like that. But it's all kind of element of the same exact thing of if you speak up about this stuff, you make yourself a target. You make yourself a target of these hate groups. You make yourself a bigger focus. Because while this group that was doing these hate raids was probably just a bunch of teenagers or, people who don't have much of a life, just sort of doing this for fun, quote unquote, which is already nasty and gross and disgusting, the people who do that aren't just isolated. There are people, part of those groups, who belong to other groups, part of bigger hate groups, part of bigger things that are much more nasty, that do wish direct harm. Physical harm against minorities. And so for someone like me to speak up against that stuff makes me a target. It makes to say, we want to shut her up. We don't want her to talk about this stuff. Hell, even me making this video right now is somewhat nerve-wracking for me to do because I know it might make me even more of a target for these groups. It's not something that's isolated to me. It happens over and over and over again whenever marginalized communities, like trans people, specifically trans people right now, because we are sort of the most politicized groups at the moment right now, but any creator from a marginalized community speaks up about this stuff, they become targets of harassment. So if we saw it with Gamergate, with women in journalism, where it was supposed to be about women in journalism, but it just became about women who existed in a space and who nominally spoke up against these things. And by the way, we have no choice but to talk about these things. It's either I sit in silence and suffer in silence, or I talk about it like I'm doing now to expose the issue, and then I make myself a target for even more of this stuff. And it becomes worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And again, it creates that chilling effect that I've been talking about. For minorities, who wants to step into this space to have to deal with all this crap? And again, I am someone who is used to it. I've dealt with it. I'm not particularly scared of being doxxed, to be kind of honest with you. I move a lot anyways. And whatever. I'm someone, by the way, for people who may be worried about me being doxxed or whatever, I'm not asking for it. I don't want more of that. And I'm sure it could get much worse, and I'm sure it could affect my mental health. But I'm also sitting here being like, I'm prepared for it. I'm willing to take on that fight. So I don't want it to happen. I'm not asking for it to happen, but it's something I'm willing to deal with. But not everyone is. And it's honestly a lot of bullshit to have to deal with, to just want to be online. Whether it's talking about harder issues or it is talking about, just nerdy shit. Marginalized communities constantly have to deal with this endless bullshit. And you wonder why it's so hard to find voices from marginalized communities. It's because we constantly have to deal with crap like this. And this has sort of become a larger conversation, not just about hate raids, but hate raids are indicative of this type of cycle. And another thing, too, within all of this is it also has a financial burden on minority creators as well. For myself, for example, I do this full-time. YouTube is my full-time job. And while I make most of my money over on Patreon, another way that I'm able to help pay my bills is through things like super chats, which are things that you do on live streams. People, pay super chats to get their, comments seen bigger in a live stream, and that gives me a little bit of a supplement to my income. It helps me pay my bills. I try not to call it out. I feel a little bit uncomfortable making people pay for super chats and things like that. That's a whole other discussion about capitalism and stuff like that. But it does help pay my bills. It is a part of how I pay my bills is through super chats. And unfortunately, when a live stream is shut down by hate raids, super chats can't happen because you're not doing a live stream. And for other minority creators who may stop doing live streams because they are now being hit with hate raids or don't feel safe doing a live stream, now that revenue stream is cut off. Now it makes it harder for creators to be able to have another form of revenue in an already very hard to monetize business. And for creators who are trying to just make ends meet, creators who want to try and do this as a full-time job, that now shuts off a whole avenue of being able to pay their bills, which again creates this bigger effect of minority creators being less likely to have a voice on this platform, because number one, they see less financial benefit to doing so. Number two, because they aren't making as much money doing this, they may be less likely to be able to consider doing this full time, so that shuts that down as well. Also, there's, like I said, the chilling effect on the community. A community may be like, oh, there's a lot of hate raids going on this channel, I don't want to engage with it, which then lowers views on the channel, views on the live streams, super chats, things like that. Patreon support gets affected. It starts to spiral out into less and less financial support for, again, specifically minority creators. So on top of all of the stuff we've been talking about, there's a financial burden as well to hate raids. This is all added work that marginalized creators have to do that creators of other communities do not. Marginalized communities constantly have to do extra work on top of all the already hard work it is being a creator, to constantly pump out content, to constantly have to deal with the algorithm, to constantly have to do all the things that a creator has to do. That's a lot of work, and it can be mentally burning out and hard to deal with as it is. But marginalized creators, on top of doing that, have to deal with all of this added bullshit created by these hate groups and transphobic groups just for these people existing on this platform. By the nature of just being a trans person, a woman, a person of color, you have to deal with all this extra crap on top of everything else. So you have added work as a marginalized creator to do because you are marginalized, on top of all the mental health effects that get added on top of that. So you're doing more work, you're dealing with harassment, you're fighting the mental health fight all the damn time, And it just constantly piles on over and over and over again. And if you speak up against it, you make yourself a target of even more. It's gross and nasty and disgusting. And we need to talk about it, and it needs to be dealt with. We need YouTube and Twitch to actually do something about this. It is not simple as just like, oh, a hate rate happens on a live stream. It is indicative of so much more, spirals out into so much more, and it shows how much more marginalized creators have to fight just to have a similar voice as anyone else on this platform. And if we speak up against about it to YouTube, we get to be seen as the problems because it's like, oh, well, we just don't want to, like, why do we want to, like, all these other creators that aren't marginalized communities get to do live streams and they aren't dealing with this crap. So why do we want to help you? Like, they start to see us as the problem rather than the people creating these things as the problem. We get to be seen as the ones causing a ruckus. We get to be the ones causing a fuss when all we're doing is just trying to advocate to have the same level of respect and decency as any other creator gets to have on this platform. It's a problem, and it needs to be dealt with. YouTube and Twitch do almost nothing to protect these creators from these sort of things. They do nothing. I have to go in and program my own tools to try and stop these things. But YouTube does absolutely nothing to help engage with that. When I try to flag transphobic accounts, when I try to flag transphobic comments, they don't really do anything about it. These accounts don't get taken down. We see this numerous times. They provide no tools to try and help and fight back against these things. They don't have an incentive to, really. And so, again, I just keep coming back to this fact that, like, it just makes marginalized voices feel less likely to be heard. It makes marginalized people feel less likely to want to talk. It makes marginalized people feel less like they have the ability to talk about things, whether it be our own marginalization or just something nerdy that they want to discuss on this platform. It's tiring to constantly have to fight back against hate and transphobia just to engage with your own audience. So that's what I kind of want to discuss, that hidden cost that we don't really think about when it comes to hate raids. You think it's just a one and done thing. Oh, it ruins one live stream. It's not that. It spirals out into have large scale effects against marginalized creators and their communities, the people who engage with that content. Because I can't know. Maybe there was a few people that were on my live stream that now feel like they no longer want to engage in my content because they're afraid that that'll happen again. Nothing against me, but they're afraid that that might happen again. I don't blame them. Now, I hope people know that this is months ago, and like I said, I built up my own tool set. I've built things up. I have plans for if hate streams and hate rates come in. I have ways to deal with it. I can't stop them altogether, but I have ways to deal with that sort of stuff. And so I have worked hard to make sure that my live streams are as safe a place as I possibly can make them. And I feel like all of you who do engage with my live streams probably feel that way. I know a lot of you would love it, and I know a lot of you have fun with it, and I have a lot of fun with these live streams. They're the highlights of my week, and I'll always fight to keep them positive, caring, kind, and meaningful, because that's what this whole platform is meaningful to me about. I like building a positive, kind community. That's what I want to do, and I'll always do that. I will always fight for that. And so just know that if you want to engage with my live streams, that's always going to be what I'm going to fight for, and I will do my best to fight back against it because I have the energy and time and wherewithal to do that, and something I want to do, and I will constantly fight for that. But I am lucky enough to have that energy and time. You know, this is my full-time job, and also I study this stuff a lot. I've been trained in a lot of this stuff. You know, it's been my full-time job even before doing YouTube. I was doing similar online stuff, so I know how to deal with this stuff. Other creators don't have that. And so I just wanted to do this video to discuss the real cost of hate raids. Anyways, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this was illuminating and an open discussion about this. Thank you for being a wonderful, kind community. And I hope that you, as always, live long and prosper. You beautiful, beautiful people.